The public discourse is fixated on kinetic threats. The Pentagon is being forced to confront missile defense economics, a protocol where a multi-million-dollar interceptor is launched to negate a low-cost drone. This is a mathematical certainty designed to drain solvency. But this is a distraction. The expensive, visible weapon is not the primary vector. The true attack vector is silent. It does not explode, it disconnects. Analysts at CSIS confirm the primary target is the circulatory and nervous system of the global economy, the network of undersea fiber optic cables. Cut 1, and you disrupt a city. Cut 3, and you can trigger a liquidity crisis. This isn't warfare, it is systemic demolition. The second prong of this silent attack is vertical. Satellite blinding, a temporary dazzle or a permanent kill of key ISR and GPS assets. The Information Security Forum has already designated geopolitics as the defining cybersecurity risk of 2026. This is the blueprint. An adversary does not need to win a kinetic battle if they can deny their target vision and communication. This protocol creates a new entity, the blind Leviathan. A nation-state with unparalleled kinetic power, carrier groups, armored divisions, nuclear triads, rendered inert. It possesses the muscle of a superpower but has been deafened and blinded. It cannot transact, it cannot communicate, it cannot see. Its immense strength becomes its greatest liability, a high-cost asset base paralyzed by a low-cost informational blackout. The motive is not strength. It is a signal of profound weakness. A nation facing a domestic solvency crisis, a collapsing social contract, unsustainable liabilities, and an unpopular war draining its treasury, cannot compete symmetrically. Analysts at RUSI and CSIS confirm this framework regarding Russia. When the kinetic cost of conventional conflict becomes an existential domestic liability, the state must pivot. It is forced to export its crisis. This pivot is not an act of desperation. It is a calculated protocol of economic warfare. The mathematical blueprint is well established, with documents from Space News confirming the Pentagon is being forced to confront missile defense economics. The model is called Golden Dome. It demonstrates how a low-cost offensive weapon can force a high-cost defensive reaction, creating an unsustainable economic imbalance for the defender. The objective is no longer to win on the battlefield, but to bankrupt the opponent's treasury. Weakness becomes the primary accelerant. An adversary with nothing to lose can leverage vectors that a stable, complex nation cannot ignore. They weaponize chaos because the cost of restoring order is borne entirely by the target system. This is a launch-on warning doctrine for economic collapse. The arsenal includes triggering financial shocks, echoing the 1997 Asian financial crisis, weaponizing failed states like Lebanon to project instability, and executing systemic cyber attacks. The Information Security Forum, ISF, confirms that by 2026, geopolitics will be the defining cybersecurity risk. This isn't a mistake. It's a feature of the new warfare. Ultimately, the strategy is to engineer a solvency crisis in the target nation. By forcing a constant high-cost defensive posture against a barrage of low-cost threats, the adversary creates a strategic liability so profound that the system collapses under the weight of its own protection. The goal is not destruction, it is insolvency. The mathematical certainty of this protocol is undeniable. According to RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, a $5 million main battle tank can be neutralized by a $500 FPV drone. This is not a balanced fight. It is an economic execution. This vector is what military analysts call the democratization of violence, the leverage of cheap commercially available technology to deliver a kinetic cost previously reserved for superpowers. The objective is not asset for asset exchange. The goal is to force the defender into a solvency crisis, engineering a defensive spiral where billions must be spent to counter threats that cost thousands. It's a launch-on warning protocol for the treasury. The kinetic outcome is secondary. The primary target is the opponent's financial capacity to wage war at all. The theater of modern warfare is not a battlefield. It is a laboratory. The primary staging grounds are gray zones, regions where state control has collapsed, creating a strategic vacuum. These are not just humanitarian crises. They are operational sandboxes, The failure of a state, such as the political implosion in Lebanon referenced in French diplomatic cables, is not the end point. It is the beginning. It creates a deniable, low-cost platform from which to launch asymmetric attacks against a high-cost, systemic target. Within these proxy laboratories, adversaries test and refine the protocols of economic exhaustion. The mathematical model is explicitly detailed in Pentagon-adjacent analysis of systems like Golden Dome, force a defender into a state of permanent unsustainable launch on warning. A $1,000 cyber probe launched from a server in a chaotic jurisdiction can force a $100 million mobilization of a nation's cyber command. This is not about winning a single kinetic engagement. It is about bankrupting the defender's entire security architecture. This blueprint is a weaponized evolution of past events. The 1997 Asian financial crisis, source number 3, demonstrated how quickly currency and market shocks could trigger regional collapse. Now, those same principles are being reverse-engineered into offensive protocols. According to the Information Security Forum, geopolitics will be the defining cybersecurity risk by 2026, source number 4. This is the tactical manifestation, using geopolitical instability as the delivery mechanism for systemic financial and digital shocks. The gray zone is not exclusively geographical. RUSI and CSIS analysts warn that internal political and social fractures inside Western nations are now being cultivated as internal gray zones. Regional instability, whether in developing nations or manifesting as secessionist movements in countries like Canada, is leveraged as a live fire exercise. These are test beds to gauge the reaction time and political resilience of a target nation, perfecting the methods for inducing paralysis before a primary strike. The objective is clear: to rehearse the playbook of strategic insolvency. Each regional crisis, each cyber attack launched from a failed state is not an isolated event. It is a data point. It is a dress rehearsal for triggering a systemic solvency crisis in a primary adversary. They are not trying to win the battle. They are calibrating the weapon that makes the entire system too expensive to defend. The launch on warning doctrine is not a strategy. It is a mathematical tripwire. Faced with an adversary's first strike capability, the protocol is absolute. The moment an incoming nuclear attack is detected, you launch a full-scale retaliatory strike. You do not wait for impact. You do not wait for confirmation. Waiting means your own assets are liquidated on the ground, ensuring total defeat. It is a zero-sum calculation born from the Cold War. Now, introduce the asymmetric vector, the fog of digital war. An adversary does not need to fire a missile. They only need to execute a cyber attack that blinds your early warning systems, or more insidiously, spoofs them. This creates phantom signals, ghosts in the machine. As the Information Security Forum warns, geopolitics will be the defining cybersecurity risk, source number 4. The commander is now trapped in a systemic paradox. The protocol demands a launch. The data, however, cannot be trusted. To hesitate is to risk annihilation. To launch is to trigger global thermonuclear war based on what could be a digital illusion. This is not a kinetic battle. It is a solvency crisis of information. The adversary has spent virtually nothing to place the target nation on the edge of a civilization-ending decision. This maneuver weaponizes the enemy's own defense doctrine against them. The objective is not to draw fire, but to induce strategic paralysis. It mirrors the exact blueprint of missile defense economics, where a nation is forced into a high-cost, unsustainable defensive spiral. Source number 2. According to CSIS analysts, by leveraging the fog of digital war, an adversary forces the defender's primary liability to become the system itself, a system that collapses under the weight of its own protection. The math is irrefutable. The next phase is not the kinetic event. It is the calibration shot, an attack designed to measure response protocols and calculate the cost of defense. Analysts at CSIS confirm that adversaries now leverage vectors of instability, failed states, as launch pads for deniable operations. This operational model mirrors the 1997 Asian financial crisis, a targeted, low-cost shock engineered to induce systemic panic and a high-cost response. The objective is to validate the missile defense economic model, forcing a multi-billion-dollar defensive reaction to a $1,000 attack. Within the next 12 months, anticipate a multi-day attribution-impossible disruption of a Tier 1 container port's logistics network. The attack vector will be a cyber intrusion routed through a non-attributable node. The goal is not the port, it is to force a solvency-draining, launch-on-warning security upgrade across all national critical infrastructure, initiating the first phase of strategic insolvency.